Hello and welcome to Let Me Bore You to Sleep. And Vinny is inches away from me, just staring at me. You got your food down there? I don't know what else. Well, I do know what he wants, but Vinny, just chill out. Go sleep. So yeah, welcome. My name is Jason Newland. Please only listen when you can safely close your eyes. What was I gonna say? So I'd like to say thank you to Lucas and Shanthony for your PayPal gifts. Thank you very much. Going forward, there's no adverts on the podcast. There's no adverts on my YouTube channel, and this free service is financed solely by PayPal gifts. So I appreciate any help, and yeah, thank you. I've got no idea what the PayPal. I don't know, what is it called? What's my PayPal address? I don't know. Stop mentioning your PayPal. It is paypal.me/Jason Newland. So the links are on my website, which is jasonnewland.com, which is my podcast website. I also have a store, jasonnewland.store, where I've got thousands of recordings available for you to download for free. Yeah, and they're all individual recordings. Yeah, that's it really. There's a lot there. A lot. And today, this Let Me Bore You to Sleep is number 1575. Blimey. I've been doing this a while now. You'd think I'd be good at it by now, wouldn't you? But I'm not. Oh. So, I've also got a YouTube channel. You just search my name or Let Me Bore You to Sleep. I've got a Facebook group called Jason Newland's Boring Group. There's links to these from my website. Also, I'm on TikTok, Instagram and X. I've also got a sore throat. Not that that's necessarily relevant, but yeah. So today what I've spent my time doing is working on the podcast Stress and Pain Relief. So I've just been making sure that all the old recordings are all on there, that the images are on there, and it's taken a few days to put it all together to make sure it's all kind of roughly in order. Yeah, so that's pretty good. So there is 48 different recordings, but you know, there's different versions of them as well, so there's 185 episodes altogether. On my Hypnosis of Sleeping Deeply podcast, I have 3,348 episodes. That includes all the different ones, different lengths and stuff. So still quite a lot. I haven't got all my Let Me Bore You to Sleep on that podcast. There is 1,855 episodes. But it goes back, I don't know what it goes back to. I'm eventually going to have them all on there. but they are all available to download on the old jasonnewland.store. Oh yes. I don't know how far back this goes on the Let Me Bore You to Sleep podcast. Just trying to keep going backwards and backwards. October last year. October. So today is Monday's Boring Objects. I can't be bothered to go all the way down because it's not allowing me to do it without it taking ages. So Monday's Boring Objects, where I talk about a specific subject or object. And I've got no idea what I'm going to talk about today. I really don't know. Let's see if I can think of something a little bit juicy. Maybe focus on a specific job I've had. Maybe. Or I'm going to talk about the comedy club. So I'm going to talk about the comedy club that I absolutely loved in London. So I'm going to talk about my involvement there and give you a rundown of the... I might have done this before, but I'm going to give you an outlay of the building as well, including when I first started going there. Yeah. So in 1990, April, I wrote down in a pad, a writing pad, like a refill pad, I've decided to become a comedian. That was what I wrote down. And I spent the next part of the year, up till December, because it's easier to say that than try and count the months. 8 months? 6, 5, something like that. Yeah, I spent that time trying to write some material. Now, I wasn't living anywhere near London, so I moved to London January 1991, and I think my first gig at the comedy club was the 23rd of January 1991. Now, if it's a Wednesday, how can I find out if it's a Wednesday? 23rd January 1991. Right, let's see if it was a Wednesday or not. 23rd, it was a Wednesday. Ba-ba-da-bum-bum. So yeah, that was my first ever performance at that club. And this is weird. Guess how many days ago it was? 12,836 days ago. 12,836 days. Wow. Wow. I don't know why that's a wow moment, but it is. So I would say I moved to London probably on Saturday the 5th of January. Maybe the 12th, but I think probably the 5th. And then I did, the 23rd wasn't the very first gig I ever did. It was the first gig at an actual proper comedy club. Because earlier in the month, probably the week before, I did go to a talent show, which was probably in a pub. And there was singers and different kinds of thing, and it didn't go so well. And in probably the summer of 1990, I travelled up to London to apply for the Sky's Search for a Star. And I had to stand on this thing in front of people. There's no audience, it was just the production team, and tell some jokes, and it didn't go so well. So, that was my two kind of, at least it broke it gave me, an experience of doing it, even though I didn't know what I was doing. And I don't remember how I was feeling at the time. So I came home. So I did those two gigs before the very first gig, which was the 23rd of January 1991. So what I did is I saw that advert in, I forget the magazine. It was a magazine that actors and that used to buy. I forget the name of it, because that's where I got the other two gigs from. And this again was a talent contest. Now, I didn't realise it was an actual comedy club. I didn't know what I was walking into. I didn't even really know what I was moving to London for. I knew I wanted to do comedy, but I didn't know really what comedy was, outside of all the different albums I'd listened to and the videos I'd watched and stuff. So I turn up at this gig. It's in Shoreditch. And I remember going there, and I don't know, but it might have been, I might have actually already just started a new job. Because when I got to London on the 5th, January the 5th of 1991, I told my new landlady, that I had a job to go to, which I thought I did. But then, because I'd worked in London the previous year, I went back to the place, but there was no jobs. There was no work. And I went to my landlady, this might be a short visit. I might have to go back because there's no work. And she said, oh. I said, yeah, oh, indeed. She said, I said, And she said, and I wasn't sure if I should just keep repeating the sounds that she was making, whether or not that would annoy her or not. But then she just stopped and said, well, I'll speak to you later. And she closed the door, which I thought was a bit rude, but not the first time that anyone's closed a door on me. So I went upstairs to my room, and it's in January, so it wasn't, the best weather to be going out, and I was just sitting up there probably watching telly, and and I heard like a bang. She had a walking stick. She used to bang it on the door, and I heard her saying, "Jason, Jason, new tenant." So I think, oh, has she fallen over? I think she's fallen over, so I just carry on watching telly. And she like keeps banging, so I'm like, okay. Of course I wouldn't keep going, oh, come on, I'm messing about. So I go downstairs. She says, "Guess what?" I said, "What's that?" She says, "I have my best friend is HR boss at the, the bakery. She's my best friend." I said, "Really?" She said, "She'll be round in about an hour." Really? Okay. So she came round, because she was visiting anyway. She was, I don't know, just good friends. They were both Italian. Not that that's a reason to be friends with someone, just because it's, same place. I've met a lot of English people that I don't, particularly want to be friends with. Most of them. And I thought, yeah, why are you introducing me to your friends? I just told you I haven't got a job. I can't take her out. I didn't know she was trying to sort of, match me in some kind of romantic manner. Well, anyway, it turns out that her friend was in charge of HR at the bakery, Sunblessed Bakery in Walthamstow. And she said, "Oh." No, I said, "Oh." Someone said, "Oh." I'm not sure it was. No, it was her, because I trod on her foot. And she said, "Oh, what heavy feet you have." I said, "It's not really the feet. It's probably more the body than the feet. The feet themselves, I don't think, weigh too much." And she said, "How would you know?" I said, "That's a good point. How would anyone know? Apart from some really disturbed people." And she said, "So you need a job?" I said, "Yeah." And she said, "Have you ever had any experience in catering?" And I said, "Yeah, I have." Wasn't a question I wanted to be asked, but yeah, I have. "Did you like it?" No. The thing is, that's a question that no one would ask somebody. So have you had experience in catering? Yeah. Did you like it? No, you're not going to ask that, because it's not a nice job, really. I didn't like it. I mean, the job I was doing was serving in a canteen. It wasn't going to be a job that I would... I mean, it was okay, but it was, it was a job, basically, and I needed a job, and it paid all right. I mean, probably minimum wage. Back then, there was no minimum wage, but it was, it was all right. I was okay. So I worked there. She got me the job. Basically, she got me an interview. She didn't give me the job. She got me an interview. So I went along. And the bloke that interviewed me was the chef. And he hated being there, because he was a chef and was literally preparing food, but in a canteen. So there was some meals, but he was a chef, He wore a chef hat, which was, I mean, there's nothing wrong with wearing a chef hat, but it was like a greasy spoon, really. It was sausages and beans and eggs and then just lasagna and chips and sausages and beans, and it wasn't anything spectacular. But he didn't really do anything. He was more of just making sure everything kind of went together. and he didn't have to do anything because we all did the job, which I was fine because I like to keep busy. Whenever I've worked, the one thing I can't really have been accused of is being lazy, because I get bored. I don't want to just do nothing. I'd rather just get on and get something done, you know. That's me in the past. I mean, nowadays, blimey. No, I'm still not lazy. I still, even though I'm not getting paid and it's not like an official job, making recordings and helping people to fall asleep, I still put my energy into it. When there are days when I can't do anything, sometimes there's weeks when I can't do anything. But, you know, I do my bestest. So I go to this job interview. I still don't know if I want to work there. I'll be honest, because I worked in a chip shop for 2 years, so it was kind of a very similar experience in some ways. You know, cooking, dealing with the public. Well, they weren't really the public; they worked there, but so it's the same people every day. And I realised I could have done a boring objects on that job, but I won't. But I think I will do in the future, because that bakery is definitely there's an easy hour out of that place, I tell you. So anyway, I got that job. Now, the reason I'm mentioning the job is I didn't work evenings, and I worked one Saturday morning, I think every 2 weeks. Or was it every month? I think every 2 weeks. So it was actually really quite a good job, actually, in the sense of it paid me okay money. It wasn't rubbish money. It was average, you know, for what I was doing. I got to eat at work, and so I only had to eat when I got home. So I could eat. Was I allowed to eat? I'm pretty sure I was. Yeah, because we would be there for the breakfast and then we'd be there for the lunch. So I probably got two dinners a day. You could always have something to eat anyway if you're working in a kitchen anyway. So, but I had my evenings free, which was the main thing, because that's when I started doing the comedy. So on the 23rd, I would say, here's my guess, that I started working on the 14th, the Monday the 14th, and I did my first gig on a Wednesday the 23rd. So I finished work at, I think it was 4 o'clock. It was something like 7 till 4, I think. Yeah, something like that, 7 till 4. So I finished work, went home, got something to eat, and then went to this place. Now, I'd never even been to Shoreditch before, I didn't think. I'd never even been near Shoreditch, I didn't think. Until, you know, a few weeks later when I realised that it's just round the corner from the Liverpool Street station. Because I was going there via Bank. So I was going from Stratford on the Central Line to Bank, then going to the Northern Line from Bank to Old Street, and then from Old Street coming up, just walking around, crossing the road and going all the way down there. The road was that alleyway. I think of it more of an alleyway. It is a road, but it was more of an alleyway. Was in 3 parts. And the club was further up. It was at the last part of the road on the right. And I went there and I couldn't believe there was like lights and it was an actual club. and there was people in there. I don't know what I expected. Maybe I was just expecting another pub or another kind of a place where people were just, where they almost weren't expecting someone to get on stage. But this was different. It had a stage, it had a microphone on a stand, it had a bar, it had loads of tables. And I just fell in love with the place straight away. It's really weird because I just looked at it and I thought, ooh. And I heard, ooh. I looked round as my landlady, she'd followed me just so she could mock me and copy what noises I made. And I just thought, go away. So from the outside, because it did change a bit, it was, I mean, it changed a little bit. There was cartoon characters on the outside. Cartoon characters such as the Dandy, and I think Beano as well. So you had Dennis the Menace, Corky the Cat, Dan. Oh, Desperate Dan. And what's her name? The girl that was kind of a little bit like... Oh, I forget her name. It's got a picture of her holding a, not a boomerang. You know, when you've got two sticks and some plastic. One of those things. Not a swastika. Oh, what are they called? You could like chuck stuff at people, but like shoot it through the rubber. Anyway, so he had that. And this was on the walls, and there's all his neon lighting, and I thought, this is glamorous. But I also thought, we're in the middle of nowhere, because walking up that road, I don't think it's not an exaggeration to say that it was dark and empty. There was nothing there. Literally, it was derelict. Well, not derelict, empty. That whole area used to be mills, I think, and you know, like 40, 50, 60 years ago, 100 years ago, whatever. And so much of those roads, there's quite a few that are down that way that were just empty. They weren't really habitable. They weren't really somewhere that you'd walk around at night. And I found that strange, especially when I realised how close Liverpool Street was. And all of the... Well, at the time, this is early 90s, the whole of the business world pretty much, like in London, the business world in London was in Liverpool Street. That's before a lot of it moved to Canary Wharf in the middle 90s. The financial world, and I think even the newspapers and all that stuff was around the corner. I didn't realise that Fleet Street, where the newspapers used to live, not the newspapers themselves, but you know, the companies, they were... Fleet Street was a very famous street. It was literally just around the corner from Liverpool Street. Didn't even know. But then that pretty much went, and I think most of the places, or a lot of them, companies moved to Canary Wharf, the actual big building. And I just found it strange that such a big especially in the early days, like Liverpool Street. I went there loads of times, probably not loads of times, but a few times over the years, building up to when I first moved there. And my experience of being in London on my own was Liverpool Street, Oxford Circus, Tottenham Court Road, the Central Line. That was it. Soho, the kind of that area where the the place you can just walk around, where the theatres are. And I mean, I was kind of like 18, whatever. I don't think I ever really went into the pubs or anything. I just used to like walk around and then come home, get on a train, because it was a cheap day out. It's not anymore. But I was just really surprised that an area so close to one of the most expensive, probably, bits of real estate in the country, which I imagine those buildings around Liverpool Street were at the time, would be just these derelict buildings with no one in them. Part of Hackney kind of area. And I couldn't really get my head around it. It seemed so weird. That changed over time, but for years I was walking up that road from Old Street or walking around from Liverpool Street, and you could just feel the energy leave. So go around the corner, see all these buildings, all these people, rushing around, waiting for buses, going in and out of the huge buildings that I never got a chance to go into. I wanted to. They looked amazing. And then I'd walk to the end. So basically, turn left out of Liverpool Street Station, the main entrance, the big entrance. And then you've got, on the left, you've got all those loads and loads and loads of huge buildings. There's steps that go up, and there's all just like, it's massive places. If you just follow the road around, keep following around, staying on that pavement, keep going, and then it goes from being a really big pavement to a normal kind of size pavement gradually as you go further away. It's kind of like the yellow brick road, because you ever see, like, you see the yellow brick road part where the munchkins are saying, follow the yellow brick road, follow the yellow brick road, follow the yellow brick road. And then the yellow brick road becomes bigger and more brighter, and all the flowers as it gets closer to the castle. But you imagine, maybe if that yellow brick road started a little bit further out, maybe and it was in some grimy forest where it wasn't yellow, it was just green and brown, and maybe there was puddles in it and some potholes, because no one ever went there. I felt like I was leaving the yellow brick road and going there. As I was you turn left, and at the time there was nothing. Huge buildings everywhere, but nothing going on. Like, the buildings were so high, but not, I mean, there probably was businesses going on, but couldn't see anything going on. And Shoreditch High Street is tiny. It's only a little road. It's only a tiny little bit. And you go down, I mean, it's so tiny, it's not a big road. They call it Shoreditch High Street now, but I mean, there's hotels there, multiple hotels. It's really turned into a really trendy area. And that started probably while I was still in London. It started to get trendier. And then over the next 10 years on the lead up. So I left London in 2001, September, and the Olympic Games was in London in 2012, I do believe. So during that period, parts of London were transformed. And Shoreditch is one of those. I mean, I'd say it was already transformed before the Olympics. Shoreditch was. But since the Olympics, there's like... No, actually, yeah, it was already transformed. There was already loads of hotels there. So Shoreditch was already kind of transformed, but it continued. Stratford, that part was proper transformed. Yeah, I guess during those years, because those 10 years leading up to the Olympics, that's when Stratford and different parts were transformed. So Shoreditch was definitely, by 2005, it was a really nice area. Yeah, and I started going up there again. I still visit quite regularly for quite a while, quite a few years, even though I'd left. And anyway, so I'm coming down this alleyway thinking, I was looking at different buildings, thinking to myself, I hope that's not it. And sometimes I see a light in a doorway, and I think, I hope that's not it. I'm not going in there. And I'd see a couple of people just huddled in a doorway on a corner, and I'm thinking, I hope that's it. Oh. But luckily, none of those were, and I got into it, and you could see it was the only building in that road that had any lights. But Old Street, once you get out of that road and got to Old Street Station, that whole area was quite light, because you had the eye hospital, there was a college, City Universities up there, you got a really busy, what is it? Oh, they had a typing school just near Old Street Tube Station, and I don't know if it's still there now, probably not, I guess, but maybe. But there was also like a taxi firm, there was a chip shop on the corner, and so it was quite busy. It was a big roundabout. It's quite a busy area. But when I got to the comedy club, I thought, I like this. And there was these red doors, big red doors, that were open, lodged open. And then there was some other doors inside that you had to open to get in with glass. So they were also red, I think, but they had like individual panes of glass in them. Like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, I don't know, 10, 12, I don't know. So I just opened you have to pull the door open, I think. I went in, and there wasn't anyone on the door. There was some people in there, but there wasn't any much of an audience, because I was quite early, because the show started at I think the show started at 9, maybe 8:30, so I was there about 7:30, and I just did not know what to say to anybody. So I looked in. So basically, as I go in, I turned. If I looked right, that's where the seating was, and that's where the stage was on the left-hand side. So turning up, looking. I'm trying to. Okay, I'll do a walkthrough. So go in. This is how it was when I first went there, but it did change a bit over the years. So go in, turn right, and there'd be some seating and like a walkway down, which is where the comedian walked down to get onto the stage, but also where people would walk down to get to the tables. And it was a wooden floor, a very old wooden floor. And I'd walk down. If I was going to go down that way, there'd be seats to the right of me. There's also be seats and chairs to the left of me. So it wasn't set out with lots of chairs next to each other in rows. It was seating. And then you could turn right, because as you got to the end of the rows where there's seats on the right and seats on the left, or tables and seats on either side, at the end of the row on the left hand side is where the stage began. It was quite a big stage. And probably the height of the table. Pretty much, I would say, yeah, about the height of the table-ish. And then turn right, and there's some other chairs and tables going across, and it just like filling that area. There was at the back, which was directly opposite the stage, there was a fire exit, again red, so you could push that open from the inside. And so there was no chairs, so there was that gangway was, you know, clear. And then there's some other chairs and tables further up. At that time there was a toilet, so I think it might have been, there was a toilet up that side as well as toilets up near the bar. I don't know if one was a women's and one was a men's, I forget. But I think that was definitely I think that was just for people that were seated up there. It was easier. That eventually got knocked through to make more room. But that was it at the time. And then more chairs and tables going against that wall, you know, giving it room for people to get into the toilet. And then down the other side towards the stage. So if you kind of like walk around the room, so you look back and you can see the stage on the right hand side and a set of chairs and tables there. And then directly in front of the stage, so let's say if you were walking in the fire exit from outside, and there was two long tables right in front of the stage, which held about 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, probably about 12 people, maybe 15 people each. And so that was kind of the layout of the club. There was lights and stuff that were aimed at the stage that were on the walls, PA system, all that stuff, you know, speakers, etc. I don't normally say etc, do I? And then there was pictures, I'm sure there was pictures inside on the walls as well of more cartoon characters from the Dandy and the Beano as well on the walls, because the walls were all like red and yellow and it was very colourful inside. Yeah, because things, it did change, but like there's a few changes happened over the years. One was the extended. So I remember when it happened. In fact, I helped do it. My friend asked me if I'd give him a hand one Sunday to smash the toilet in. I thought he just meant we were going to go for a curry, but no, he literally meant he wanted me to wanted to get rid of the toilet. So one of the waiters and me turned up on a Sunday, and it was basically like this toilet was, it was sturdy, but it wasn't it just, yeah, it was quite easy to dismantle. So we got rid of it, but it had to be sorted out by the Wednesday, you see. So that's why we went in on a Sunday, because they were open again on a Wednesday evening. So I guess they needed plumbers and stuff to sort that out. So yeah, did that. and that made room for about another 4 tables, I think. And then later on, what did they do? They made room for more chairs by knocked through a wall, which meant that they could put more chairs down, because they were limited, because the waiting staff had to walk through around to get to the different tables. But once they had that wall which they could walk through, they didn't have to, so it created more room for tables and chairs. The maximum amount of people that was allowed in there was 200 sitting, and I think they started off about 150, 160, and managed to get up to 200 after making changes to the place. So yeah, it was good. But when I first went in there was, forgetting all the audience and the comedy part of it, there was a bar to the left. So you walk in through the door, and straight ahead of you was the toilet, or the entrance to the toilet. And to the left, if you look, there was a bar, big bar, or a nice sized bar. And in front, and there was also a fireplace to the right hand side. So kind of in front of the bar, between the bar and the toilet, there was a fireplace, like a real proper fireplace, and it was on because it was January. Was it a real fireplace, or was it just an electric fire? The reason I ask that is because, part of me thinks, well, it doesn't matter if it was or not, which is true. But then there's that part of me thinking, well, it doesn't matter if I say it was, even if it wasn't. But what if I know it wasn't? Then I'll be lying, and I don't want to lie. I can't say for certain that it was a real fire. Yeah, I can't say for certain. But it was nice. And then, so there's this fire with a mantelpiece. To the right, there was the entrance to the toilet. To the left, there was the bar. Between the mantelpiece and the bar, on the left-hand side on the wall, there was a cigarette machine. One of those old-fashioned. I mean, it was old-fashioned then. And my friend, who owned the place, he wrote down all the amount of money people would save if they stopped smoking. And he actually literally wrote that all down and to try and put people off buying them. And then, so turn around and you got the bar. It was wood all the way along, and it kind of curved and went round to the right. And there wasn't anything like some bar tops, they have a lid that comes down and it kind of makes the whole thing just flat. And, it didn't have that. There was a gap where people can come and go. So that was good. Well, not for me, because I was a customer, but at that time I was an unknown quantity. So I go in there, and in front of the bar and the area between, near the fire, there was a sofa and some chairs, and the comedians were hanging out there. And when I went there, either the first time or the second time, Jo Brand, a really famous female comedian, was sitting down on the sofa, and I was a bit starstruck because I'd seen her on TV, and she is arguably one of the first famous stand-up comedians from the alternative era. I mean, she was she was a big star long before I even got to London. Long before people like Lee Evans and Jack D and all the ones that kind of seem like they've been around forever. She literally has been around forever, since like middle 80s. And I don't know if I was trying to impress her or not, but I said something that upset her, and she didn't talk to me again. I think she was okay a while later, but it took a while. I think she literally got up and left. So I don't know what it was. I was probably just trying to be funny or, wholesome, and I don't know what it was. Oh yeah, I urinated in the fire. Apparently that put her off her dinner. No, I don't know what it was. It's something. I didn't mean to. Genuinely didn't mean to. Because I guess I was just showing off, just trying to fit in, But I did meet a comedian that we kind of stayed friends. His name was Wilty, or Nick Wilty. We all knew him as Wilty. And he'd already won a contest, like a stand-up talent contest in Canada, and had been on TV and everything. And then he came here and he was just winning the show. Because at the comedy club, they'd have like maybe up to 12 comedians doing 5 minutes each. And then the audience would decide who'd won. To hand out leaflets, to tick which ones you like, and that was it. And he pretty much won every time he was on. There was a handful of comedians that were new, but were good straight away. Like you got Nick Wilty, you had Rona Cameron. She won straight away. Mandy Knight, although Mandy Knight was in a double act at the time. Tim Vine, although not straight away, but it didn't take him long to become really good. I saw him on his first ever gig, I think. Tim. And then who else was it? A bloke called Dickie Duran. Another one called Harvey O'Leary. So Dickie Duran was from Liverpool, and he would win it. So it was kind of between those groups of people. Harvey O'Leary would often win it. I never won it. I did. I'm not sure if I got a laugh. I think I might have got a couple of laughs over the years, but I made quite good friends with the people that was going along. So I was 20 years old at the time. Or 20 and a bit. I mean, I was 20 at the end of August, and I went there, started there near the end of January. So yeah, just 20 and 5 months. And I remember the staff just not giving me funny looks, but kind of, they seemed quite nice, but when I first went there, there wasn't a lot of friendliness, but there was from Nick, like Wilty. Harvey O'Leary was really fun, really friendly. Harvey O'Leary, Dickie Duran was, Rona Cameron was, Tim Vine, all those people, they were friendly. There's a few others, I can't remember all the names, that came along. Every now and then, every few weeks or every few months, someone would come along and they would just be brilliant. And it wasn't a fluke, they were just really, really good. And they'd go on, they'd come in on a Wednesday, they'd win it. And the prize for winning a Wednesday contest at the comedy club was you get to do a 10-minute slot paid on the Thursday. I think it was the following, I don't know if it was the next Thursday or the Thursday, like the next day, or whether it was the following week. But I think that's what they did. And once you get a 10-minute slot, and if that goes well, quite often back then you maybe get another 10-minute slot, and if that goes well and you get a good reputation, then you get a 20-minute slot, and it grows, and within a few years you might be headlining. So I never quite got there. I did get some paid gigs, but I didn't get any like short slots. Not at this particular comedy club, I should say. Just in case my friend Noel phones me up. Why are you lying again? So I fell in love with that place. Oh yeah, also next to the bar. So if you put your back towards the fireplace and sort of like leant against the bar, then straight ahead was where the kitchen was. So that was all blocked off. So the kitchen was in there. That's where they made the burgers and the different things. So, and the entrance from the bar and the kitchen was the same entrance. So they'd all be sharing that entrance in and out. So I got to know the staff because I went there every single Wednesday, pretty much for a year, near enough. Maybe 2 years, maybe 3 years, but I was there regularly. So, and I would get there early, before they'd even open the doors. So they might open the doors at 7 or 7:30, and I'd be sitting outside. So the staff started letting me in because they got used to me. They knew my name, and they kind of got used to me being there because I was there every single Wednesday. And also you had to be there fairly early. It was first in, first on the list. So for people that turned up at 8 o'clock, 8:30, chances are they wouldn't get to go on unless they were, liked, I suppose. So they'd let me in and I'd sit down. And I don't know why I just didn't offer to help out. I mean, I should have got a job in that place in 91. So that's what I would do. I know it's like, what would you do different? One of the things I would do different, if I was able to kind of go back to that time, bearing in mind I moved there in 91 and I wanted to be involved in the comedy industry, I think I should have really got a job in the comedy industry. Whether it was, and I thought maybe getting a job in the comedy store, even if it was just cleaning, putting the chairs out, taking the coats, giving out tickets, taking the money, whatever. It would have been a really good in. I'd have got to know the comedians, I'd have got to know the promoters, because other promoters would be coming in watching the comedians. So I get to know people, and then I could then sort of, on my nights off, do gigs during the week. So maybe, and then occasionally have weekends off and go and do a gig on the weekend and just build it up like that. Just start off only doing gigs on Monday to Thursday. And there's always gigs to do. Back then there was quite a few. And but I didn't think about it. I don't know why. I mean, I'm pretty certain if I'd have said to my friend Noel, who owned the club, the comedy club, not the comedy store, but the one he had, he'd have given me some work, but I never even considered it back in the early 90s. I used to help him out a bit, like later on, but I never even thought about it. The amount of times that I was kind of struggling for work, or I could have just gone to him and he'd have helped me out, because he was my friend and we always got on well. Well, most of the time. I think he used to, I don't know. I think he got a bit fed up with me sometimes, because I always was there and I didn't seem to be improving. And I think there was a little bit of frustration there, which is fair enough. I mean, he's running a business. But the good thing, I'd go there on my nights off, at the weekends. That was my go-to place. If I wasn't doing a gig, sometimes I just go to the comedy club, my friend's comedy club, and just be there all night, watch the show, hang out at the bar, and do that, and then go home. Or if I was doing a gig somewhere, I quite often end up getting a taxi with another comedian or a bunch of us, and go back to the comedy club and hang out there till 2:00, because they had the comics room upstairs with a pool table, TV, and like loads of sofas and stuff. So that used to be, I had a social life. And I used to I knew some comedians to talk to that were nice to me, but probably most of the comedians that I got on with were the new ones. Even though maybe I wasn't new anymore, 5 years in, they were new and I was still unsuccessful. But, some of those ones that started off with me still stayed friends, like Nick Wilty, Tim Vine, I used to get on with still. And some kind of, went off and did their thing. But, yeah, Terry Alderton's another one. We kind of started off roughly at the same time. He got successful. He was really successful. It's not weird, but what he did is he got shortlisted for the Perrier in 2001 or 2002, something like that. And if you win the Perrier Award, which it's not called the Perrier Award anymore, but it's the Edinburgh Festival Comedy Award. It used to be called the Perrier Award. Used to be called the Perrier Award for years and years and years and years. And loads of people have won it, including like Lee Evans, and Steve Coogan won it when he was in a double act with John Thompson, and the League of Gentlemen, I think they won it as well. What's his name? I'm not sure if Jack D won it or not. I can't remember. But there was a lot of people. Every year someone wins it. So yeah, I didn't. It changed. It changed the name. But Terry, because he won, he was like shortlisted, or maybe he was named best newcomer or something like that. Suddenly, the doors opened for him in the entertainment world, which should have opened beforehand. I mean, he still had doors open. He was still doing stuff before that. I think on telly and that, but it's suddenly, I don't know, something happens when you win those prestigious awards, or if you're in the spotlight being nominated. TV executives become interested, and a lot of people end up with TV shows or going on tour, having their own, just become well known. So Terry had, at one point he was hosting the lottery, the national lottery, on a Saturday night, which is arguably probably one of the biggest TV audiences at the time. Imagine the lottery. I mean, probably had about 10 million people watching every Saturday live. So that was a really, really good gig. He was in EastEnders for a while, and then he probably did loads of stuff I don't know about. But what he did do, which I just couldn't believe, is he changed up his act. And I saw him on stage. I think it was on YouTube, or no, it might have been live at the Apollo, something like that. Terry Alderton. Let's have a look. Now, he used to be a former professional footballer, so he's about my age. He might be a little bit younger, a little bit older, don't know exactly. He's 55, exactly the same age as me. In fact, he's a little bit younger because he was born in October. So in the early 2000s, so he was doing acting, TV stuff. I don't know what he was in. Right, but he was in. Of course, he was. He was in the final season of London's Burning. I forgot about that. See, whenever I see someone that I used to know, because I've not seen him for years, and I see them on telly, like playing a part or whatever, I get so excited. It's brilliant. So, and also he was in EastEnders playing Terry Spraggan, which was Bianca's boyfriend or husband. That was in 2013. Now, I don't know what his character is. So he was nominated for the Period Comedy Award in 1999. Or was it 1999? So the last time I sort of spent time with him would be 2000. Christmas 2000. I think he was... Maybe it wasn't 2000 then. Yeah, it would have been, because I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was Christmas 2000, because he was headlining the shows, like the Christmas shows. He was doing like 5 nights a week. Because I remember sitting upstairs eating with him. Oh well. So he, if you, I mean, I realise you're probably not going to be Googling it at this moment, because I'm boring you. So boring, and so boring. I couldn't believe I saw him on stage on TV, and he had a bald head. Because last time I saw him, he had hair. But he was playing this character that was... I don't know how to explain it other than genius. Like one of the best things I've ever seen in comedy. I mean, I'm not seeing so much. It was like two people. He was moving in between two different characters at the same time. It was really funny, really, really funny, and I kind of tried to nearly get in touch with him once. Well, in fact, I do follow him on Facebook, and I thought he might remember me, but I don't think he does, because it's a long time. It's 20 odd years since I last saw him, over 20 years. And then Nick Wilty, I sent him a message. I followed him on Facebook, and I sent him a message. Is it you? Is it Nick Wilty? And he said, yeah. Is it the Nick Wilty? And he said, yeah. And I realised he hadn't remembered me, so I thought, I better leave it, because they were two of the people I kind of classed as friends in comedy. There was others as well, but just I kind of stayed friends with them all the way through when I was doing comedy, right through the whole of the 90s, really. And yeah, it was another... Who's the other person I was thinking of? There was a comedian called Jimbo, and he's now in his 70s, I think. He's still doing it. And he used to just stand on stage. Sometimes he wouldn't say a thing. He'd just play around with a microphone and and then not do anything for 10 minutes or 5 minutes. Other times he would just lay down on the stage. Sometimes he'd go on and just eat a sandwich. I saw him so many different times. And I used to tape my recordings for a few years. I'd tape quite a lot of recordings on a little digital recorder. And I could hear, because I did a lot of gigs with him at the comedy club, but also other places, and I could always hear his laugh, because it was it was like that was in the background. I was like, okay, especially as it's often the only laugh I was getting. So, and it's amazing he's still doing it. He's got a YouTube channel, and there's clips of him on stage, and it's like, wow. He's in his 70s. He's got 20 odd years older than me, because he was in his 40s when he was doing it then. I mean, he might not be 75, but he's in his 70s. And I was like, wow. And he was almost like my biggest fan. He really liked my act. And I just remember his voice. It's weird. His voice wasn't weird, but he was always pleased to see me. It was always lovely. Always. Really nice man. I suppose in a way it was quite good times. I mean, the Saturday nights, I spent, actually just thinking about it, New Year's Eve, apart from the occasional one where I couldn't, I spent New Year's Eve at the comedy club in probably 91, 92, not 93, because I stayed, because I had a girlfriend then, so I stayed with her. I remember walking down a promenade. But then New Year's Eve, 94, very much likely. Not 95, because I was with another girlfriend. Oh, yeah, so 94, New Year's Eve. I remember that very well because, yeah, there was this lady started talking to me and kind of, I don't know, she felt sorry for me because I was on my own. And on New Year's Eve, I mean, there was, people did come in later on, like the comedians and stuff, but it was, the staff were too busy to chat. So there's no sort of hanging around and having a chat or anything like that, which used to happen, you know, like on a normal night. It was a case of getting out of people's way. So it probably wasn't the best time to really go there, but it was either that or be at home on my own. So I went. And if, I think even now, right, if that comedy club was local, like in this town, and I would go there. I think I would, because the, you know, the building of friendships, knowing the staff and everything like that, I think I'd still, or if that club, if you moved that club, because it's closed down a long time ago, but if it was, yeah, I'd still be going there. I'd still be visiting it now, when I could. It's the kind of place that I'd want to go to forever. It was a home, it was a place I felt safe. I don't know why, but I loved that place, absolutely loved it. And I got to explore more of it as I got upstairs. I helped my friend out in the office, helped him out with other things, so I kind of got to know the place quite well, or very well, over like it's 2 decades really, because I was going back when I was doing my university degree. My friend gave me a little bit of work in the office, a couple of days a week, so I go up there and during the summer and stuff, so and during the Christmas, building up to Christmas, so that, you know, I'd go up and help out with the orders on the phone and stuff like that. So yeah, it was good. I mean, at one point there was an art gallery at the top of the building. So the building was in 3 parts. So there was a doorway. So you go in the front door, turn right, and you see a doorway, and that led to upstairs. So you go in there, go upstairs, and there was two stops. So you go up one set of stairs, or you got the second set of stairs. The second set of stairs is, I think that's where the office used to be. So that's where the office was. I think I'm losing track a little bit. I might be wrong. I think it was, because my friend lived up there when he first moved and bought the club. He lived in the actual building for quite a while until he bought his house. And yeah, there was like a shower room and kitchen area and stuff up there as well. And then the office was in there, and there was a fairly big office with 3 desks, maybe 4 desks. And yeah, it was quite a big room. But then downstairs there was I'm trying to get this right. There was a comics room downstairs, and so in the middle bit rather, So the comics room, and you could basically, it was big space with a pool table on the left, and there was all these sofas, chairs and sofas, and it was a little bit of a storage room as well for bits and bobs, but it was, it's definitely, it held quite a few people. And that was on one side. The other side, there was, the other side, it was actually being used by what do you call them, people that deliver stuff, like on mopeds and stuff, delivery people. That's what it was. Or was it a taxi firm? I think it was delivery firm. And so they were in there for quite a few years. And then they moved out. I think that room, that was being let out by the club. So they were making money from that being let out. And then they moved out, and that space was, and this is in probably 1999, I'd say, 98, 99, it was converted into a nightclub. It was completely ripped out and turned into a nightclub. Yeah. So that was cool. And then at one point upstairs was moved out, and there was an art gallery up there. So things have moved around and changed over the time, over like that decade. And there was an art gallery in about probably 98, 99 time as well. So that was all done up. Because the bar manager and his wife or girlfriend, they were both artists. So my friend gave them that space to have their art and to also show other people's art. And then I think they moved from there and got another place and stuff, so that was good. And then he moved the office, I think, right to the top, and extended the nightclub area, built some toilets, and at one point I think there was even, it was transformed into living area for some staff, I think. So I think there's 3 or 4 of them living, maybe 3 of them living in there, but they all had their own rooms, and it was all just all separated and everything like that. So, but then that went, and then it was kind of converted into like an extension to the bar, to the nightclub. So yeah, it was constantly under change, always something new being done. And I think on top of the building there was a, what do you call it, like a, not a bath, a jacuzzi. There was a jacuzzi on the roof. I remember once I was standing on the roof, and I was with Gina, and she was the manager, one of the managers, and I was helping out. This was like, oh, blimey, I don't know, but I was helping out for the afternoon, or for the morning, in the office. I think maybe they had staff shortage or something, and we went onto the roof to watch the solar eclipse with our little glasses on, and everybody was on roofs. I didn't even know that those buildings were occupied, and it was such a lovely moment. and she grabbed me and pushed me, and kind of I fell back, but then I kind of got back on, and I said, "Oh, we were getting down, so it was so funny the way you pretended to push me off the thing." She said, "I didn't pretend. You're just too heavy. I misjudged your weight." I don't know. I think I might have upset her. I'm not sure. But yeah, that was nice. I liked it. It was a nice memory. I want to add something to the story that involved eating ice cream, but I don't think that might have happened. All I do remember, I think, is at the same time on EastEnders there was I think Ian Beale and maybe someone else was at the, not Hendrix, what's it called? Those stones, Hendrix stones or whatever. The stones of, where people go and worship the stones and stuff. And he was there, Ian Bill, maybe with his wife and stuff, and they were all looking at the sun or the moon, well, I guess a bit of both, but at the same time, isn't it, really, with their glasses on. And that was the same day, so I was at home watching EastEnders thinking, oh, I did that. Stonehenge. You see where I get Hendry from, though, you know. Hendry. It's a very similar name. And Terry Alderton, it was so funny, the act he had, like later on. See, I think he might have took a break from comedy because he was doing TV. Then he went back, and that, I don't know how he didn't become a superstar with that act. It was phenomenal. I'd say almost perfection as far as comedy goes, like visual, the voices, it was so good. So yeah, who knows? But I'm trying to think of some memories of the place. There was another member of staff that didn't talk, well, two actually, didn't talk to me for a while because I'd upset them. Then they talked to me again later. I think what it was is people would sometimes take me the wrong way and then realise, because I was kind of playing a character on stage. When I first started doing comedy, I was a little bit rude, you know, and probably, well, no, I'd say definitely didn't come across very nice on stage. But that wasn't, I mean, generally it wasn't me. But I think sometimes I kept that character going after getting off, and sometimes maybe it was on before I went on. But I wasn't really me. You know, I was generally quite a decent person. And I think as I got older, the people that I annoyed when I was younger came to realise that actually, not all of them, but some of them came to realise that I'm actually, you know, fairly decent. And they kind of accepted me. But then it's quite weird because there's some people, I remember I went there the very last night of the closing of the club, and it was kind of strange because, and that was 2000 and was about 10 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, 7 years ago. It was a long time ago that he closed. And there was a couple of people that I used to, or one is I used to work with him, and he had curly hair. Not really relevant to the story, but I forget his name. But I worked with him in the Elephant and Castle. He had a record shop. Pete his name was. And I thought he liked me. Like, he took me under his wing a bit. He was older. I think he was probably in his 30s. He wasn't old, but he was in his 30s. He had a successful record shop in the shopping centre of Elephant and Castle. He specialised in, rare records as well. So it wasn't, he had a lot going on. So he was successful. And I made him laugh, and he seemed to, he used to come to the comedy club on a Wednesday night, and I think really he was always just laughing at me. I don't think he was ever laughing with me, or it was just, I don't know, it was weird because he employed me for a while, and that period was probably one of the happiest periods I had in London. Because suddenly I was outside, because I was selling tapes outside because there was a market stall outside Elephant Castle. Elephant. What's the name of it? Around the Elephant Castle. The Elephant and Castle. Sorry, it's the Elephant and Castle, isn't it? So outside there there was market stalls. So I had a table and I was selling tapes that he wanted to get rid of. And it was only for about a month, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever, leading up to Christmas. Or maybe a week or two after. And honestly, one of my happiest memories that was. Because I was going there, it was always cheap to get anywhere in London back then. The tube prices for the day were really cheap. It was just like a couple of quid. And so I'd go to there. I couldn't even tell you how to get to Elephant and Castle now. But yeah, that's a whole story in itself, actually. That's a whole Monday's Boring Objects of its own, the Elephant and Castle period. But I enjoyed it. I was getting attention from some females that were local who would show me, just being nice to me. That was nice. I got on really well with a member of staff that he had in his shop. We used to go drinking in the pub, the Charlie Chaplin pub next door to the shopping centre. It was cool. And above in the Charlie Chaplin pub, my friend Pete started a comedy club, Charlie Chaplin Comedy Club. And I felt like we were starting it together, but it was his. I just was helping out. So we did that together for a few weeks, and we'd go out handing out leaflets outside the tube stations and stuff, and we did get an audience. And then, I'm not quite sure what happened. It's just he didn't want to pay me anymore, and so I kind of moved on. But he never seemed to be able to move on from me being 20 years old or 21 years old. He kind of thought like I was always that age. And even when I'd see him in the late 90s, when I was like 30, or nearly 30 years old, he'd still come into the club, because he had his own club, Soho Ho Comedy Club. At this time, he took it over, and he might still have it, I don't know, but I hope so. But it was weird, because he'd want to see him, he'd just be, kind of seem to be laughing at me, instead of just, I don't know, I'd go there and see him, and I just classed him as a friend, and then when he'd go to the comedy club that I'd go to regularly, he'd, again the same, it'd just be, seemed to be like making fun of me. And there was another bloke, Jerry, and I used to give him lifts home from the club, and I'd walk home with him. I knew him for years and years and years, and I saw there was an interaction on Facebook, and this was like 2008, 2009, and they were talking about me, and they were making fun of me becoming a counsellor. Now, you know, I can understand why in a bit, because perhaps you wouldn't have looked at me when I was 21 and thought, yeah, I want to share my thoughts with him, and he'd be able to help. Probably not. Maybe not even in my 20s, but, you know, at this point I was 38. I wasn't that 20-year-old that he'd known from the 1991. And they were just making fun of me. Like, oh, I feel sorry for his clients. Can't believe he shouldn't be allowed to do that. And I thought, oh, that's a bit off. And then I see them both at the closing of the club, and this was probably 9 years ago now, 8-9 years ago. And my friend invited me, because he knew I loved that place, so I kind of went there. I think I stayed at his house that night, I'm not sure. So we were there, and a couple of members of staff, loads of comedians were there, because they were getting, I think it was a free bar, basically. So lots of comedians, some said hello to me, some didn't. But I saw them two, the Pete and what's his name, and they were standing the other side, and they were looking over and just laughing. And I was standing there with my friend who owned the place, and I was like, I wanted to go over and say hello to them, because I'd never had a bad word to say to them ever, really. Not really. I mean, not really. I did fall out with one of them once, but I can't remember that was over. Oh yeah, I stole his car. Oh, actually, one of them, he actually came up to me once, and he said to me, is it true that you used to date Laura? I don't know if her name was Laura. I said, why? So it was this lady that I used to date, and she was a comedian. So he'd met her like a few years later, and someone had told her. She said she hadn't been with me, but someone told him that she had. A little bit gossipy, isn't it? And he asked me, he said, did you have any communication with her? I can't remember what I said. I think I said, like, mind your own business, I think is what I said. I said, just ask her. If you don't trust her, why are you with her? But apparently she was telling him no. And it was a little fib. I think maybe she thought I was not around, not realising that we still saw each other. Like, late 90s, early 2000s. still see him. He'd come round nearly every Saturday night. I'd see him and would go home. Well, not every night, but if he was there on a Saturday or Friday, I'd give him a lift home. But I was like, why? He didn't come over and say hello to me, nothing. And by this time, I'm in my early 40s at the time, so like 45 probably. So you think, like 25 years after they'd first met me, I'm going to be a different person, you know? Not going to be the same. Not the same. Maybe a little bit like the same, but not quite the same. But I remember because my friend has Tourette's, and he employed a friend of his that had Tourette's to do the painting. And it just, even back then, because I had upset my friend when I first met him because I was making jokes about Tourette's. I just see the documentary and I was just being very rude about it. It was a long time ago, and I was uneducated about it at the time. But then I got to know him, and he's explained it to me like in great detail, and I've known him for, well, since 91, so how many years is that? And he's been a good friend to me, my friend. So, but he had this painter, because I offered to do the painting, and he said, no, I'm worried, because he had these cartoon characters, and he said, if you go through the outline, it could just ruin the whole character, and I don't want to have to redo the characters. We're just trying to clean off the wall because there's a lot of traffic and stuff, so just clean it off and just redo the outline only, and maybe fill in bits that need it. And I said, I can do that. He said, no, I've got someone to do it. So he introduced me to this bloke, took me into the warehouse, introduced me to Fred, or whatever his name was. And every time he spoke, his hand shook, like he's like he was doing a magic trick or something. I'm not doing it in a mocking way, but I'm thinking, how can he be your painter? Well, when he painted, his hands were as steady as a surgeon. Phenomenal. Like my friend, when he dances, no tics, nothing. He relaxes by dancing. When he's on stage, when he sings, no tics. Has hardly anything when he's on stage, doing comedy or anything like that. But dancing takes it away, completely gone. So with this bloke, Fred, I don't know if his name was Fred, but it seems like a good name. The intricate painting calmed him down completely. It almost goes against logic, but then it's not a logical condition, is it? But there's not much in life that is logical, I think, as I get older. But yeah, there was a time when I just seemed to upset everyone. When I first met them, I'd upset them. I seem to be able to, not purposefully, but I managed to say the wrong thing. And then either they didn't get to see me again, so they didn't find out that I'm actually a fairly decent person, or not, depending, you know. Or they'd see me over time and realised, oh, okay, he's all right. He's young, or well, no one knew that I had bipolar, so including me. So I would say the wrong thing sometimes, and I'd go in and out of moods and just almost not really feel in control, and not know why. But when people got to know me, they seemed to like me. Even in the call centre and in insurance, a couple of people really didn't like me for just straight away. And then a few months later, they were like my best friend. Very strange. I think maybe I don't fit the criteria. I don't fit the mould of what is expected. Maybe physically or verbally or emotionally, I don't know. Maybe I'm not a good example of a man. A man. I don't know really. I don't know. So yeah, that's it. That place, loved that comedy club. Absolutely loved it. Even when I left in 2001, so I left London, in 2001, I still would visit the comedy club. But it's like anything, kind of, I'd visit regularly. I'd be there every weekend I could. And then gradually, when I had weekends off from working, I just wanted to rest. And it became less and less often. It became, instead of like a couple of times a month, it became like maybe once every 2 months. And maybe a few times a year. It's, just the way it worked. Until, what they did near the end, I say near the end, basically, from my understanding, I don't understand particularly exactly, but I think my friend sold half of his club to someone else who was doing other stuff in the club as well. And he moved the comedy part upstairs to where I don't know, to be honest. Did he move it upstairs? I think he might have moved it to where the nightclub was. I'm not 100% sure, to be honest. But he moved it anyway. Maybe he moved it to the other side. So he moved the comedy club part, and downstairs was a bar and other stuff, and then eventually, so I stopped going then because it wasn't the same. I went down there once and it was just like, okay, the comedy's upstairs, but this just isn't. No, there was a comedy downstairs. It was just in one section. I'm losing track. But it wasn't the same. It wasn't supposed to be the same. And it was all rows of chairs. It wasn't tables anymore. So they still fitted a decent amount in. But it just wasn't. Yeah, it was a bar there. But the other part was kind of different kind of bar. And it wasn't the same. No one would agree. No, I don't think anyone would disagree with that. It wasn't the same as it used to be, but there was a reason for it. It had to be done to keep the place alive, keep the place going. So change is, it's inevitable, isn't it? But it just, it wasn't for me anymore. I was saddened seeing it change and then going, because I love that. But I just absolutely love that place. That building going back to the early days, all the way through the 90s, my favourite building ever. It's my favourite building. I love the place. It's just every part of it. Just the kitchen, the bar, the stage, the toilets, the upstairs, the bar upstairs, or the toilets upstairs, or the office, the skylight. Oh, this was weird, right? I was there one day and I was helping out, and I don't even know I was helping out. I was just on the roof because my friend said, "Can you just tell what's his name upstairs? Give him a message for me." So I walked up the stairs onto the roof just to let him know. Now, he was in the process of putting stuff up there. I think it might have just been someone was on the phone, or something like that, something minimal. His coffee was ready or something. So I'm walking towards him saying, "Steve," and he said, "Stop." So I stopped. I said, "What?" He said, "Slowly walk back." So I was walking across glass that wasn't supposed to be walked on. And there was probably, I'm trying to think, 6, 12, 24, probably 30 to 40 foot drop. And I said to him, "Why, what's wrong?" He said, "Well, that glass is thick, but it's not supposed to be walked on. It's it's just there to stop rain from getting in. It's not supposed to be, it's not a walkie on one." And I said, "Okay." He said, "What did you want?" I said, "Well, doesn't matter now." He said, "What do you mean it doesn't matter now?" I said, "Well, I'm focusing on this glass, getting off this glass." "Well, can you tell me why you came out? You were calling me." I said, "Can I focus on getting off this glass first, please? Because if I go through the glass, you won't be worrying about what I was, that won't be your concern, will it, about what I came out to tell you?" And I can't believe what he said next. He said, "It would be the top of my list because I wouldn't be able to get the answer from you, would I?" I said, "That's so rude." He said, "You're rude." I said, "But could you just let me just slowly back off and get away from this glass, and then I can tell you what the message was?" And then I backed off, and eventually, okay, he guided me back. He said, "Yeah, just slowly try and stay on the lines," because that was where the support was. And I get off, and he said, "Okay, right. So what was the message?" "Okay, all right. So the message from Noel was, can you make sure when you're up here, can you put a sign up to say, to let people know to not walk on that glass?" He got the up with me. He didn't talk to me for about a week. I don't know why. It's like, well, I told you the message. And he said, "Do you not understand what did you not get it?" I said, "What do you mean?" He said, "All that fuss, do you not realise what you've done?" I said, "I've done nothing. I've passed you the message on." I said, "Oh, I think I understand what you mean now." He said, "Good." I said, "Yeah, you wanted me to actually write the sign and bring it up." He said, "Yeah, that's it, yeah, that's what I wanted. You to write the sign." Wow. Wow. That is absolutely fun. Wow. Which I thought was a bit rude. Or a compliment, I'm not sure. It's hard to know sometimes. You know when you get a wow, but sometimes it feels like it's too much of a wow. Too, I don't know if it's the right word, but too wowy. Too wowy. I don't know. I'm not sure what I miss most about that place. I kind of feel that it was my youth. My youth. My younger years. It was definitely my 20s. So that's the thing that marks out my 20s in some ways more than anything else. That comedy club. I mean, even when because I took breaks from even performing comedy, and even when I stopped performing comedy altogether, I still went to the comedy club because I loved the place. It just meant something. And I think it closed down, as I said, it's about... Shall I have a look to see? Because it probably has it on the internet. Oh, God. London. It might not even have it on there now. Now it's gone. Right. It's not for some reason. Serious, the comedy store, comedy show. It's really weird because it was around for so long. So long. Oh, yep. So I just found a video here from 2015. Yeah, so it was still around then. So maybe it was 2016. What? So it says here there's a TripAdvisor for that place, 2026. All you should need to know before you visit. That's weird. They haven't opened it up again, have they? It's a popular comedy club with a weekly open mic night. Okay. Hours. This location was reported permanently closed. You'd think that something like TripAdvisor would be up to date. I mean, why even advertise it if it's not there? You know what I mean? Maybe I'm just being a grumpy old... Oh. So have a look. It's London. Sorry, something went wrong. It is one of London's and the UK's best loved and longest standing comedy club, based in the heart of the East End. So this was now operating as the Big Belly Comedy Club. Really? That doesn't sound correct. Let's go to the website, see if the website's still running. It's now going to the Big Belly Comedy Club. Big Belly Comedy Club. Monday nights, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. What? The Big Belly South Bank. I'm not sure about this. This is weird. Ring in 2026, the Big Belly Way. Massive tunes, zero pretense, and tickets that won't rinse your wallet. Tickets under £20 because spending your rent on New Year's Eve is so last year. Alright, this is New Year's Eve. Open mic comedy in London. Ding Dong Gong Show. Ding Dong Gong Show. Every Sunday, fresh comedians compete to make the audience laugh for 5 minutes straight. Experience the thrill of interactive comedy where you, the audience, hold the reins of control. With our unique Dong of Power system, you have the power to cast judgment on the acts. We choose 3 lucky audience members to wield these powerful dongs. If a comedian isn't tickling your funny bones, simply raise the Dong of Power. Upon the sight of 3 raised dongs, the act must gracefully exit the stage. This immersive, lively event mirrors the format of Britain's Got Talent, swapping buzzers and Simon Cowell's for our one-of-a-kind dongs. Become a part of this engaging, hilarious experience today. Okay. So is this all in one place? Bottomless brunch comedy in London every Saturday. Bottomless. 90 minutes bottomless booze and pizza every Saturday. What does that mean? I'm going to have to... I don't know what that means. Bottomless. I know what bottomless... I mean... 90-minute bottomless booze plus pizza from just £29. Every Saturday and Sunday, a 90-minute free bar with London's best range of bottomless drinks. What is a bottomless drink? I don't know what that means. Ding Dong Gong Show plus bottomless brunch comedy. Get tickets. So Saturday 28th of March. It's not saying who's on. You can also upgrade Ding Dong Gong Show and bottomless brunch comedy. So I wonder... I mean, maybe the domain name that my friend had, it just was given up, and someone saw the opportunity to take that and have changed it and diverted it to another place, because that website was used for a long time. It had a loyal following, so people would be... I mean, it's a good way to launch a new comedy club, I suppose. I'm not saying that's what they did, but that is what they did. No, I don't know. My friend might have sold them the domain. My friend might be involved in this. I don't know. It's possible. Venue hire. Inquire to hire or put on a show at Big Belly. Type of show. Podcast recording, live audience. So who would visit me? Who would come and listen to my podcast if I did a live audience recording of my podcast? How many people would turn up to London in the South Bank? Anyone? It would be interesting to do a meet and greet Q&A thing where I could just get an audience and you could just ask me a question and I could answer the question, but live, in person. Da da da. I don't know. I'm not sure. So that's the Ding Dong Comedy Club, Ding Dong Gong Show. So what about the normal show? So if I go to Big Belly, go back to there, the best comedy at the best. I must visit for comedy it's going too fast. Right, Monday night. This is Monday the 16th. Right, so we've missed that. So what was on today? Tevin Everett, James Milgam, Blank Peng, Heman Makwana, and Luke Chilton. So Tuesday night comedy show, free slot with ticket. Again, I'm not sure what that means. Eric McElroy. He's quite well known, isn't he? Milo Edwards, Thor Stengborg, and Ibs Sese. And Wednesday we got Kate Martin, Patrick Spicer, Phoebe Taylor, Bobby Mayer, acts to be announced. So that's Wednesday. Thursday, Lucas Jones Ho, Ben Pope, and acts to be announced. So they're not open at the weekends then, it's just Monday to Thursday. I say just, I mean that is pretty good, 4 days, but most comedy clubs, oh they are. So 19th, okay, so they've got other things going. They've got a secret headliner show. Right, it's a Friday. David Anthony, Susie Pierce, Prince Abdi. So that's the only person I know so far from these names. Prince Abdi, he's been around quite a while. Then on Friday the 20th, it's saying South Bank, then this one's saying South Bank. So they're doing 2 shows in an evening. One is at 7 and the next one's at 8:30. They're really, yeah, they're going for it, aren't they? Prince Abdi again, David Anthony too. So basically they're doing 2 shows, one after another. And now we've got Saturday. Let's have a look what's on a Saturday. Again, they're doing one at 6 o'clock and one at 8:30. Mark Cram, Javier Jarquin, Shalaka Karup, acts to be announced. And Saturday 21st at 8:30, Mark Cram, Shalaka Karup, and to be announced. And then they've got one Sunday, 22nd of March. It's not even saying what it is. Cilia Goose. Let me click on that, see what comes up. Doors open 6 p.m. London's sellout comedy night is about to get sillier. Bigger venue, even better lineups, and much much more honks. We're also looking for South Walks, silliest goose. We know everyone does things that are a bit silly sometimes, and we want to hear them. So come down to hear some of the silliest stories that have been submitted to us. Get ready for some racy, saucy scandals, funny first dates and office outages. Headliner Fatiha El Ghori and supporting Sam Nicoresti Edinburgh Best Comedy Show Award 2025 and Sydney May Comedia New Comedy and LGBTQ plus New Comedian and more TBC. It's much easier to read it out than to remember some of these words and stuff. What's on? So Valentine's Day. Is Valentine's been and gone? I think it has, isn't it? Yeah, I remember saying, letting everyone know, yeah, I've not had a Valentine's card for a while, and thinking that maybe I'd, receive a Valentine's card, but nope. The hint did not work. No. We are literally, apart from one person, I don't recognise any of these acts, and they're all probably headlining acts, really successful. And I wonder what happens to all the other people. Where do they go? Where do the older comedians go? Do they? I don't know. Anyone? I don't know. So I'm wondering if the Comedy Store. Let's click on the Comedy Store website. Let's see what's on. A serious night out since 1979. Watch out for. Right, Tuesday this week. Monday, Victor Pastoran in London. I don't know him. Best Kane Brown. Wednesday, I don't know him. Best stand-up Thursday with who? I don't know. You're not telling me who they are. It's pictures. Find out more. Right. MC Matt Skellingworth, Marcus Birdman, Felicity Ward, Dave Fulton. I've heard of Dave Fulton. So let's go back to Saturday. No, that's Thursday. Friday. MC Ben Norris. Yep, no Ben Norris. Well, I used to see him a lot on. Used to be always on stage. Matt Bragg, Matt Stellingworth, Felicity Ward, Marcus Birdman. So Ben Norris, I remember. I've seen he's still around. That's good. And then got Saturday MC, which is the I was going to say umpire. The MC. I wonder what MC stands for. It's like the announcer. Andrew Ryan, Matt Bragg, Matt Stellingworth, and Felicity Ward. I mean, guarantee they're all brilliant. I just don't know any of them. This is bad. I'm so out of date, so out of touch. I think I've seen someone that looks familiar to me. Paul Thorne. I think I've seen him before. Paul Tonkinson. Paul Tonkinson. I used to know him. That's another one. I was talking about comedians that would just turn up on a Wednesday night, the new act night, and they were new, but they just win straight away. Paul Tonkinson was one of those, and I think he was shortlisted for the Perrier Award as well in about 92, 93 time. He worked on The Big Breakfast for a bit. He hosted that for a while. I'm trying to look at the images, but I can't see because they're too small for me to see who's who. But there's someone with a big grey beard, so it might be someone I've heard of before. That used it. Paul Sinha, Nabil Abdul Rashid. So Nabil, he was, I think I had lunch with him once. I think it was that night when the comedy club closed. So my friend was a big fan of his. It's quite a good website, actually. History. In the beginning, in May 1979, Don Ward, founder, CEO and executive producer, opened a comedy store in the old Gargoyle nightclub in Dean Street, Soho. He'd been inspired by a trip the previous year to see the new comedy clubs in New York and LA. They were producing observational comedy and poking fun at the political scene and the establishment. This was so refreshing and stimulating, his aim and dream was to recreate the same in London. As an ex-comedian and now a producer-owner, he wanted to present something different in his venue, and a complete evening of alternative comedy seemed ideal. I performed at the Comedy Store once as a new act, just as a tryout, open spot, and it's even got the planning order for Saturday 19th of May 1979. Alexis Sales, a compere. I should look at the people. I don't recognise any of the names. Alexis Sales, Bob Payton, Arnold Brown. Yeah, Arnold Brown. So he was one of the first. Right. No, I don't recognise any of the other names. The plan was to keep the night running as it was, Monday, Thursday. His initial problem, and there would be many, was where's the new comedians were going to come from? So adverts were placed in various publications: The Stage, Evening Standard, Evening News, and different places. And the advert was saying, are you trapped in a boring 9-to-5 job where you are a very funny person who wants to become a comedy star? If your answer is yes to that question, then contact us. The Comedy Store in Soho. Right, there's a spelling mistake there, but the Comedy Store in Soho, and become part of the... Oh no, it's not. Contact us, the Comedy Store in Soho, and become part of the comedy revolution. If you have the talent, we will help you become a comedy star. Auditions were held and 150 people showed up. Yes, 150 people. The first person in the queue was Alexis Sale, who presented as angry, at odds with everything of authority, if it didn't make sense, and wonderfully against Maggie Thatcher. He became the host for the shows for the first 3 years. And blimey, then they had the Gong Show. So you had to... I always got a picture of... Wow, Jennifer French and Saunders. Oh, this looks so young. I mean, they were young, but blimey. So Jennifer Saunders, you had Rick Mel and Adrian Edmondson, Nigel Planer, Keith Allen, Alexa Sale hosting. It's it would have been so amazing to see that back then. Just phenomenal. Imagine being at the kind of the launch of something new. You know what I mean? That'd be amazing. It'd be so cool just to be like. I suppose it's a similar thing if you. I mean, in a way, I was around at the beginning, but I wasn't. If that makes sense. So, this started 1979 at the Comedy Store, but all the different comedy clubs didn't really burst up until the 90s. So I was involved in comedy in London in probably the second golden age. I mean, you say the golden age. I wasn't, not in the birth. I wasn't there in the birth, but I was there in the growing up, in the toddler stage, or the maturing stage. I don't know. Because in the 70s, in the 1979 and through the 80s, there was a lot of comedians that were on TV and that were there. But there's also that degree of anarchy and slapstick stuff, and that Rick Mel would be involved in, and they all became stars in the 80s. Jennifer Saunders, Nigel Planer, the Young Ones, and Blackadder, and I suppose in the 90s, like in the late 80s really, other than, there's only a handful of comedians that were on telly regularly. Like Phil Cool had his own TV show in the 80s. Joe Brand. Trying to think of some others that were like regularly doing gigs on TV. Ben Elton, of course. Ben Elton, yeah. So anyone that was around with Ben Elton back then, the Saturday Night Live or Friday Night Live with Jonathan Ross. So there was different comedians that would come along and be on there. The management, so you had French and Saunders. There's a few. But then, like in the 90s, those people that had grown up watching that stuff in the 80s realised perhaps that they wanted to do comedy, because they'd grown up in the 70s maybe watching some of the comedy which was about mother-in-laws, and maybe it was a bit rude and stuff. Although I liked any comedy, I didn't care. If it made me laugh, it made me laugh. But the 90s, so I'd say the seed was planted. The seeds were planted. The Comedy Store planted the seeds and grew it to be a small plant, and grew it so it was a precious plant, and then started allowing other people, giving a little branch away to other people of that little tree or that plant, and out of that plant grew other comedy clubs, and other comedians decided to give it a go, and it grew into this huge thing during the 90s in England, or in London, and then it spread. I mean, it's always been, comedy's been big around the country, like up north and that, but the kind of alternative, well, that's not alternative anymore, is it? But that style of comedy was started to really grow during the 90s with clubs like Jongleurs and Jongleurs. Wow, they had quite a few different places around the country. I think they still do. So it was it grew. I'd heard about a comedy store before I went to London, and I remember going there, and I'll be honest, it's the only comedy club that I was excited to be in outside of the first one I went to, the one that I loved. But that was because I'd never been in a comedy club before. But going out on the night out, I went to Leicester Square, where the comedy store is, or at least it used to be. Queuing outside, and I think the headliner got changed, so they changed it in front of everyone, and they changed it to Jack D. I don't know who it's supposed to be, and I didn't even know who Jack D was, so I was pretty early in my time being involved in comedy. And I had such a great night. It was brilliant. Loved it. And then I went back a few more times. I followed when Dennis Leary came to London. I followed him around quite a few different comedy clubs because he was so funny. And I went to the comedy store when I performed myself, doing the live, the 5-minute open spot. I got a few laughs, but yeah, not huge amounts. And then, I got to perform there, and I got to go backstage and be with the other comedians in the most famous comedy club in the country. Well, in London anyway. So, and then I went there to see, I kind of made friends with, I got friendly with Mark Thomas, and he gave me his number. So I called him up one time and said, can I come and see you at the comedy store, because you're there on Saturday? Can you put me on the door? And he did. So I went and watched him and went backstage to say hello and just say thank you. So that was cool as well. And I got a really good seat. So that was just, I don't know how I became friends. I mean, we weren't like buddies going out and stuff. But I think out of all the comedians that I met, there was a period when I wanted to be like him. Mark Thomas was, and I'd still say yeah, but there's Stuart Lee and Mark Thomas were the two kind of comedians that I'd want to be like. I don't know what it was. I mean, Stuart Lee, he's my favourite comedian. But Mark Thomas, there was that passion, that complete, it's almost like it was him. Wasn't putting on an act. He was just being himself, and he was talking about stuff he really knew about, because he was topical, like really topical. I just thought he was so amazing. I remember he turned up at I think it was a charity gig on a Sunday, and he just turned up in his shorts, t-shirt. He'd been out with his family, no preparation, just chatting. They called him on went on stage and did his act. No nerves, nothing. He was just so cool, such a cool geezer. Really, yeah, for quite a while he was like my comedy hero, which if you'd have seen my act at the time, you wouldn't believe, because it couldn't have been more different. So I don't know what happened to that building now, the comedy club that I used to go to. I don't know what it is now. I think it's just gone. It's still there, but there's probably a nightclub or something. So yeah, so that's me. I'm finished for this recording. So thank you for listening. Remember to be kind to yourself, because you do deserve to be happy. Be gentle with yourself. You deserve to feel safe. Lots of love. Bye.